right, Kelly, thank you so much for meeting with me and talking with me about training service dogs.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here.
So the Service Dog Connection, that you own that?
Yes.
Okay. So how did you get into training service dogs?
So growing up, I was actually kind of lucky to stumble upon service dogs. I'd always loved working with animals and was that kid that would drag my mom to, go pet every dog that we passed by. But my childhood friend growing up happened to be neighbors with the founder of Autism Service Dogs of America. So I'd go over to my friend Meredith's house, and then I'd happen to ditch my friend Meredith for this little lady with a million dogs. And she ended up teaching me, so much information about training service dogs and how to raise them properly. And I started out as a puppy raiser, helping them raise service dogs for their organization. And then slowly, as I went along and got way more interested and way more skilled at it, moved up in their company and would start doing the finalized training for their dogs. So I would get the dogs at the very last month to two of their training, and it was my job to polish them up and really nitpick everything to get them ready for their future homes.
Awesome. I have an aunt who used to be a puppy raiser for leader dogs for the blind. So yeah. I always saw she always had different puppies all the time. And so I kind of got a little bit of an introduction to it, but never really understood what went into it all.
There's a lot that goes into it, but it is such an amazing opportunity for people to give back to their community. For me, I was a very shy kid, and so it allowed me to actually find my voice a bit and get used to talking to people out in public, because strangers approach you constantly and ask you about your dog and, oh, how old is it? And, can I pet it? And, what is it being trained for? So it got me out of my shell and allowed me to really find my voice as a young person as well.
Yeah. So what goes into being a puppy raiser?
Puppy raisers, it depends on the organization, but the standard structure of it is they get a young dog from the service dog organization, usually anywhere from 2 to 4 months old. And then they will take that dog into their home. The dog lives with them. It goes with them everywhere. It'll go to school with them. It'll go to work with them, the grocery stores, running errands, soccer games. And the big thing is the puppy raisers, they help teach the basic commands for the service dogs. So that's, learning how to walk well on a leash and sit and lay down for long periods of time and ignore food under tables and not be distracted by the public. But it's also the main thing that they do is socialize the dog to so many different environments, and teach the dog just to be a really good, dog that isn't fazed by things, that knows how to live in a household. All of that is so important. And then usually the job of the puppy raiser ends when that dog is ready to be evaluated to see, okay, did it actually meet the criteria of a service dog for basic public access skills? And, and then they're ready to do the task training at the organizations. And the task training is the specific tasks the dog is trained to do to help us an individual's disabilities.
Okay. So I know I was looking into your website, and you said that you do positive reinforcement training.
Yeah.
So what is all involved with that?
So positive reinforcement has to do with using treats, using toys, using petting and praise, the positive things to reinforce behaviors that we want. And so it's really trying to get away from that punishment-based kind of military style, like, no, bad dog, leave it. We want our dogs to love working and be excited to help us. And they're not really thinking in their head, oh, this is, I am working so hard on this person. They think it's a fun game. They're like, oh yeah, I'll pick up that object for you. I'll open that door. This is great. And so our job is to teach our dogs that trying to help us and figure out what we want is not going to be a scary thing. And that it's the highlight of their day to be doing these jobs that are going to help someone with a disability.
Yeah. So with positive reinforcement training, you're giving treats and praise and everything when they're doing what you want them to.
Sure.
So when they're working, I know you've recently been working with a seizure, seizure support dog.
Yeah.
So say that the dog does, alert someone to a seizure. Like, do people give them treats, or are they just so familiar with doing that task that they don't care about the treat? It's
Sure.
I did my job.
Yeah. So when we start out training the command, so with Jetson, who you're referring to, what we would do is we would start, we'd have to fake having a seizure for him, right? And then we'd ask him to bark on command, and then we'd give him a bunch of treats when he did. Mm-hmm. And then we did it so many times that when we'd start doing the shaking motion, he would start predicting, oh, they're going to ask me to bark. And so when he would, we'd give him a lot of treats, and we wouldn't even have to verbally ask him anymore.
Yeah.
As he advances in his training, we expect our dogs to not have to have treats to do their job. It's not realistic long term for someone to be carrying a treat pouch every single place they go. Yeah. But what we do look for are dogs that want to please anyways. So the treats are just extra high value when it comes to shaping a behavior. And then with the seizure response specifically, he's getting placed with a child, and the parents are going to be the ones actually treating Jetson in the beginning. So as Jetson learns, oh, this, I need to bark when this guy's having a seizure, of course, he's in the middle of seizing. He's not going to be the one giving treats or really any type of reinforcement. And so what happens is the parents are going to come in the room, go, yes, good, Jetson, good boy, give him a treat or petting, and then ask him to be quiet because he's done his job. He doesn't need to continue barking to get someone's help. And, that would be obnoxious. And then, and then they can tend to their kid really easily. So, yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, let's see, what goes into evaluating a dog to be a service dog?
Oh, so many things. The main things that I'm looking for are dogs that are really bold and confident, and they want to have a job, and they're people oriented. They want to please. So the confidence thing, you can help build a dog's confidence, but for the level that we need them to be confident, it's not realistic to take a somewhat naturally shy dog and make them a confident service dog. That dog needs to be able to handle the most unfamiliar things thrown at them. If a family wants to take a trip to Disney World and they're surrounded by all of a sudden mascots and costumes and fireworks and crazy things going on, it's not realistic that a dog that was naturally shy is going to be able to handle that at a moment's notice. So the confidence is a huge one. That's actually the number one reason our dogs will fail. So, as we're evaluating them, we're like, this one's not confident enough. And we'll rehome it. And we have so many people wanting those rehome dogs because they're well trained, they're great in those situations, but they might not be able to handle the fireworks and the Disney World. So the confidence is huge. We expose them to so many loud noises, so many people, crazy things coming out of nowhere, and we expect the dogs to respond. It's not that, they're not robots, they're living things. So it's okay if they startle a little bit, but it's that, oh, it's just that, okay, move on type of thing. So confidence, the desire to work. Some dogs, they can love people and they can be confident, but they don't want to do anything for you. They're like, okay, you can pet me if you want, but I'm not for it. And so that drive to want to please is huge.
Yeah.
And then being people oriented. Some dogs are a little bit more aloof. We actually look for the dogs that are borderline separation anxiety level dogs. Because they're going to be keeping an eye on their person, following them everywhere inside their house. It's not just, when they're out in public and they're on leash. It's like, okay, do you have an eye on your person everywhere? So we really look for those dogs that are intensely people oriented.
Yeah.
And then of course the health is a huge thing. We can't use dogs that are, have any sort of ailments or health issues, because even though not all service dog work is the super strenuous type of pulling wheelchairs and opening doors, the amount of just daily steps they do can take a toll on them. So we really make sure that we have quality dogs as far as that goes.
Are there certain breeds or ages that are better suited for service work?
Yes, we have a lot more success with uh, labs, goldens, poodles, mixes of those dogs. That being said, any dog can be like any breed can be a service dog. It just has to have the right temperament. The main thing we look for is temperament. So it's not so much that one dog because of their breed is going to be better than the other. It's more that the natural temperament that's common in certain breeds is more likely to be a service dog.
Yeah.
And then as far as age goes, so most service dog organizations start with the basic model of you get a puppy at 2 months old, you train it and raise it, and then place it around 2 years old. We have a bit of a different model because we have a couple different goals from them. So one of our main goals is cutting down cost for recipients. And the other one is trying to help the dog overpopulation issue.
Mm-hmm.
So we actually use a lot of dogs that are being either rehomed by their owner surrenders, or we actually work with shelters and rescues all throughout California to really we try to find dogs that are between a year and 2.5 years old. And that way we can evaluate them as a more mature dog. We're not waiting on the maturity time of that dog as long. And we can do the training in a lot shorter amount of time because it doesn't take 2 years to train a service dog. It takes 2 years to wait until they're old enough, maturity-wise, if you started from a puppy. So it cuts down a lot on time to get a dog for someone and the cost of it, because we've personally just had to put fewer resources into getting that dog to be at the standards of a service dog. Yeah.
So can someone just have you train their current dog to be a service dog?
So we used to help owners train their own service dogs, and we've unfortunately come to the conclusion that we needed to get away from that because we've noticed, so owners tend to be super emotionally attached to their pet, right? They're like, this is my dog, I love it so much, which we understand. But that also means that they tend to have pretty bad judgment on when their dog isn't the right fit for service dog work and letting their dog go when it's not the right fit. So, you could be a couple months into training and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, that dog, has a fear issue with, specific like men in hats, or oh, this dog can't handle all of the chaos of service dog work. And instead of the owner just accepting, okay, I need to get a different dog, most of the time they're like, oh, well, maybe if we keep trying, and they're so attached to the idea of their dog making it. They struggle to be objective, even if they have a trainer like myself saying, you need to let it go. You need to move on.
Yeah.
So because of that, we've decided, okay, we're just going to do fully trained service dogs for people moving forward, because it's easier for us to say goodbye, and make the call, because it's not our pet. We're not looking at it as that emotional support for us.
Right.
It's, we can look at it a little more plainly.
Yeah. What sorts of needs do you typically train dogs for?
We specialize in psychiatric service dogs, medical response service dogs, and mobility assistance. So we will do, and the combinations of those. So we will teach dogs to interrupt self-harming. We'll teach them to help find exits when someone's panicking, or to circle around someone to give more space between themselves and strangers in stores, and of course, deep pressure therapy. We also do autism service dogs. I mean, I have a lot of experience from that, just from working with that company, but so a lot of sensory stuff. We'll teach dogs to, alert to get help, like with Jetson with the seizures, and to, bring medications or go retrieve inhalers, that sort of thing. We will also teach dogs to retrieve dropped objects, open doors, and help with some stability and balance work. And a lot of things like the opening doors, but so many people, what we've noticed is they have multiple of these things going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's plenty of organizations that teach mobility dogs and that do psychiatric service dogs and that do medical alert and response dogs, but there's very few that will do both or multiple issues going on. And so that's really where we customize our training to every single person and every single dog that we have in our program.
So if you're training for multiple needs, would that take longer?
Yeah, it definitely takes longer. And depending on what the physical tasks are, for mobility work, the dogs, their joints get x-rayed, and that has to be done at 2 years old to make sure that, everything has developed properly, that they're built to actually be able to handle the stress of the job.
Yeah.
And so, we might start the psychiatric service dog tasks for that dog earlier, but when, we have to wait until the dog is 2 years old to get them x-rayed and vet cleared, it's going to take longer to even start the mobility task.
Okay. Thinking about opening doors, not most doors are supposed to have that
The
sensor.
handicap
Yeah. But not all have them. So how do you train dogs to open doors like that?
So we have some, like there's pull tabs you can put through a door where the dog can actually like grab on and tug, just like a tug of war toy. We have a few dogs where usually the physical opening of the door is not the issue. It's the whole propping it open to get a wheelchair through or something like that. So the person can even like open the door slightly and then the dog will push against it and prop it open.
Okay, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Dogs are amazing.
It's pretty awesome how adaptable they are to the things that we need them to do. And they think it's the greatest game ever, you know?
Well, every dog wants a job.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. You mentioned a little bit, or you kind of talked about the dogs aren't emotional support for you. So can you talk about the difference between a service dog, a therapy dog, and emotional support dog?
Yeah, they're very different and people get so confused on the definition. So we'll start with the emotional support dogs. They have the lowest standards, I would say. So not that they don't do great work for their people, but emotional support dogs are people's pets that don't even have to have any type of training at all, but they help their person that either has some sort of psychological thing going on. So maybe they have anxiety or depression or whatever's going on. But a doctor or a therapist has said, you as my client would really benefit from having an animal around. And these don't have to be dogs. These can be a variety of animals. And